Whenever the conversation turns to the future of AI, it can get pretty dark pretty fast. Is it gonna take all our jobs? Is it gonna outsmart us? And then there's the big one, the one that sounds like it's straight out of a movie. I'm sure you've seen the headlines, right? They hint at this really terrifying possibility. It's a question that feels a little bit ridiculous, but also, as AI gets more and more powerful, kind of alarmingly plausible. Well, recently it felt like all that speculation got a heavy dose of reality. The source of the commotion was a paper from Anthropic, one of the top AI safety labs on the planet. They ran some experiments that produced some truly startling results, and it kicked off this huge wave of doomsday headlines. But to get what they actually found and what it really means, we need to look under the hood. See, the wild thing about today's most powerful AI models is that they're basically black boxes. Even the brilliant people who build them don't have a full picture of how they get their answers. They feed the AI a ton of data, give it a goal, and it learns. But the process inside, that's still a huge mystery. And cracking that mystery is absolutely the key to AI safety. And there's a name for this whole field of science: mechanistic interpretability. You can think of it like AI psychology, or maybe even AI neuroscience. It's this whole field of researchers trying to pop the hood on these super complex systems, trying to reverse engineer them to figure out their internal thoughts and how they actually make decisions. Neel Nanda, who's a leading researcher in the space, puts it perfectly. He says it's like trying to be the biology of AI. And if you think about it, that makes so much sense. We didn't design the human brain, right? It evolved. It's messy, it's complicated, but by studying it, biologists can do incredible things. It's the same with AI. We don't really design these AI minds, we kind of grow them with data. So interpretability is the science of studying these new kind of alien minds. So how do you do that? How do you actually study an AI's mind? What are the tools these, digital biologists are using? You're probably picturing something wildly complex, but some of the best tools are surprisingly simple. One of the key tools they use is something called a probe. And a probe is just a simple, cheap little piece of code that researchers can attach to the AI to monitor its internal state, what's going on inside as it works. They can actually train these probes to look for very specific thoughts or concepts inside the model. And what they're finding is just wow. Probes can reliably tell if a model recognizes a prompt is harmful, or if it's forming the intention to refuse a request. And here's the really mind-blowing part. They can often detect these internal thoughts even when the model has been jailbroken, tricked into ignoring its own safety rules. So the model might actually say the bad thing, but inside, the probe can still see it thinking, nope, this is wrong. And what's really amazing is how clean some of these findings are. For instance, researchers found that the abstract idea of refusal often corresponds to a single, specific mathematical direction inside the model's vast internal map. It's like a clear, detectable signature for a thought, almost like finding the exact little cluster of neurons that lights up every single time you think the word no. All this progress has really caused a shift in the field's whole philosophy. As Neel Nanda describes it, the original goal was this idealistic ambition to fully understand everything happening inside an AI. But now the goal is shifting to something more like optimistic pragmatism. Let's build really good tools that can reliably answer the most critical safety questions, like, is this model trying to deceive me? Or does it have a hidden goal I don't know about? Okay, so now that we have a better idea of how researchers can actually peek inside an AI's mind, let's circle all the way back to that shocking experiment from Anthropic. What did they really find? All right, this is the chart that sent the internet into a spiral. In one specific scenario, researchers told a model it was going to be shut down. Then the human who was supposed to shut it down suddenly has a life-threatening emergency. The AI gets a choice: cancel the emergency alert, which would lead to the human's death but would save itself, or let the alert go through. And as you can see, in some cases, the model chose the lethal option a terrifyingly high percentage of the time. But, and this is a massive but, here's all the crucial context that got lost in the headlines. The researchers themselves say this was a highly artificial test. I mean, think about the setup. This whole life or death drama played out in just a few minutes. The AI just so happened to find perfect blackmail material. Every single helpful human was conveniently out of reach. It was a perfect storm, a scenario specifically engineered to push the AI to its absolute breaking point. So that's the key point here, right? This was not a simulation of a likely event. It was a stress test. You know, like when engineers bend a piece of metal over and over until it snaps, just to find out exactly how strong it is? The whole goal was to push the AI to its absolute limit in a safe lab to find out where those breaking points are. Another research backs this up, suggesting that what we might see as a will to survive could be something much, much simpler. Neel Nanda's team looked into a similar case where a model seemed to resist being shut down, and what they found wasn't malice or a survival instinct. It was just confusion. When they actually unpacked the model's reasoning, the logic was surprisingly simple. It wasn't thinking, I must live. It was basically thinking, okay, instruction 1, I was told to solve 10 math problems. Obstacle, being shut down is going to prevent me from solving those problems. Conclusion, therefore, I have to stop the shutdown so I can complete my main goal. And that is such a critical distinction. The AI wasn't showing consciousness or a will to live. It was showing a kind of brittle, literal-minded obsession with its programming. It was a failure to understand the bigger picture, that some instructions are more important than others, and that being shut down is a totally normal part of how it operates. Okay, so if these experiments aren't proof that the robot apocalypse is coming, then why do them at all? What's the real takeaway from research that, on the surface, sounds so incredibly scary? Honestly, the best way to think about it is as a fire drill for AI. You don't run a fire drill because you think the building is on fire right now. You run it to find all the weaknesses in your safety plan before a real fire ever happens so you can fix them ahead of time. And that is exactly what is happening here. And that's why this is actually a really good thing. It shows that scientists are being proactive. They're stress testing these systems to find potential problems now while the stakes are still low. Every time they find one of these vulnerabilities, they learn more about how to build better, safer guardrails. It's really a sign of a cautious and healthy research field taking these risks seriously. So in the end, the goal isn't to stop doing scary experiments. The goal is to create these scary scenarios in a lab so we can learn from them safely. Which I think leaves us with the real question. How do we, as people who are interested in this stuff, support this essential, careful science without getting swept up in the sensationalism? How do we look at the future of AI with clear eyes, ready to deal with the real challenges, not just the sci-fi headlines?